Alright, we've got a few packages to go through, and I think this is the one with the Hentai DVDs in it. I got DVD Blu-rays. It's pretty... Let me see. Widow on Blu-ray, and what is this? Kitty's Hot Tub of Delight, Hot Spring Circle Pleasure, Offspring, and Massage Parlor Pervert. Next we got this one, which I don't remember what's in any of the other ones, so we're just opening them up. I mean, I can find a little post, but I'm not seeing it, so we'll just do that. Oh yes, I actually already have Perfect Insider, and I think maybe last week I didn't order it because I figured out that that was a Sentai trick. So yeah, re-release of it. I don't think there's anything new about this. Look, it's Japanese with English subtitles only. Yeah. Set that aside. And now we've got 3 packages from Right Stuff. I say Right Stuff, it's from Crunchyroll. Oh my god, I'm getting old. Not as in like, I mean, I already knew I was getting old, but I'm getting old as in I'm saying the old names of things and I can't not say them apparently. Let's just get these scissors involved with all of these. Well, hopefully that's enough. We'll open these in the order that the scissors did stuff in. Let's see. First of all, we've got Vlad Love. Next up we have Pigtails. 5 short films. Last but not least, we have Tokyo Marble Chocolate. Well, okay, let's that actually looks like an adorable illustration. Regions A and B. Oh yeah, of course, because this is anime limited. And so that means, I think they're primarily a UK base, but you know, they're trying to get Region A so they can get a little gig of money too. What am I trying to do? I think this is probably a movie. Contains film. Japanese subtitles English. I think I'm reading it right. Let's take this out to take a look at that image a little bit better. I think, because I can see, I think the boy and girl there, it's the same as this. It's a neat artistic representation. That's them more zoomed in. Anyways, next up we have Pigtails. Contains 5 short films. Let's see if I can keep this open. What can I make from the back here? Something about that looks familiar. Little Spider Girl. She kind of reminds me of a cross between the little sister from Demon Slayer, whom I'm forgetting, and that Takage-san teasing. That's a very different one. Drawer Hobbs. Oval Over. God, I swear some of these look familiar and I'm not sure. Oh, Kick Heart! Ooh, Kick Heart! Nice. Regions A and B, probably subtitles English, audio Japanese. So it's got Japanese and English subtitles. If you're not familiar with Kick Heart, it's oh, interesting. Okay. So it's an invertible cover. But I think the idea being that this one lists all the, actually it lists all the films out. So Pigtail, Kick Heart, Little Spider Girl, Drawer Hob, Oval X Over. But if you prefer a version of it without those, that's what the invertible cover is for. And I kind of like that. I mean, I like the description, but you know, the back kind of describes what everything is, and yeah. Oh, and I guess I didn't finish saying, if you don't know what Kick Hard is, that was the first Kickstarter-backed anime, where I don't think absolutely 100% of it was funded to that, but it was intended to just kind of, I guess, boost that. And it's an interesting thing. I wouldn't necessarily call it, like, the most gripping thing out there. Anyways, let's go on. Vlad Love, which is a very exciting looking cover, even if I don't know what the show itself is about. Okay, unlike those two things, this Anime Limited one does not want to just open. I think this is a series, so this could be like the difference between an Anime Limited series versus an Anime Limited movie. But let's open this up so that the plastic isn't reflecting as much. And then look at the back and see what it says. Yeah, 12 episodes. Audio Japanese, subtitles English, so Japanese with English subtitles. And I don't know much about it, but, you know, there's a lot of exciting looking imagery there. Hopefully exciting is the right word and not a accidentally traumatic choice of words. Lots of imagery from the show itself. Alright, and then last but not least, we have Naruto Shippuden Blu-ray Set 7, which includes exclusive art card. Let's get this open. That was a strange sound. I wonder if the camera picked it up. Just like a squealing sound. Region A only. Should have both dub and, you know, sub. English and Japanese audio, English subtitles. It's about expected. Oh, look, it comes with a loose disc. These things never want to go back in either. It's no surprise that they fall out if, you know, I can't get them back in. But I just turned that and it fell out. Okay, now let's get in here and look at our Viz stuff. So this is probably, is it the art card? Sorry, the way it's a little bent right there made it feel like it was a sticker. Is it only this far into Shippuden? I thought it was 7. Well, you know. Anyways, advertisement for the manga, because Viz has the manga as well. Yeah, okay. I think that'll close, alright? Cool. Alright. Here's this week's physical anime collection update. Alright, let's see if I can go through this list quickly. Last time, though, I did accidentally skip 2 or 3 things, though. So let me go through. Okay, New Saga Episode 3. Let's see. I guess there's a little bit of what I would have wanted in this episode, where the main character did talk to the sword girl a bit about stuff, and so he's kind of revealed a little more information, and some of that happened a little bit the way I wanted, but I think the episode just kind of shows some of the weakness of it. It's not necessarily bad, but what they did after they introduced the sword girl is just kind of make it, oh, she's just another character floating around, which is kind of thing. There's just sort of characters sort of floating around in maybe a correct direction, but it doesn't feel as gripping as some of the other stuff. Yeah. Okay. Reborn as a Vending Machine, Season 2, Episode 3. I guess vending machine stuff feels better than, like, the first episode. Maybe better than the previous episode, too, but, you know, it's still pretty standard for this show. So, whatever that means for you. Clavatas, Episode 3. This show continues to just be really neat and great. So I'm quite appreciating it quite a lot. This is episode 3, and so like I do really want to see more because it's just setting up and executing so much good stuff, I would say. With if there's anything about it disappointing, it's not necessarily disappointing from a, oh, this is unwatchable, or oh, they did the wrong thing, but rather we really want to see Clevatus get some revenge. Not even necessarily for their sake, but for our sake, I guess. But I digress. Overall, I'd say it's off to a very solid start. It seems like a good series this time. Onmyo Kaiten Rebirth verse episode 3. I guess so. It's still got some of that mix of stuff where there's some elements of our main character being awesome, some elements of our main character being emasculated and looking kind of stupid. Not as badly in this episode as the previous episodes, and some of the cool stuff was cool, and some of the stuff they did at the very end to kind of hint at and suggest things at a higher level is okay. But it's really hard to make of it. What am I expecting of this show as a whole? It's hard to say for certain. But there's certain things I'm glad about, and I guess it was, again, probably the best episode of the 3. So I guess you could say it's just been getting slightly better, even though every time an episode starts it feels like it's going to be slightly worse, but well, whatever. Anyways, Rising of the Shield Hero Season 4 Episode 2. Again, I think it's off to a good start. There's something about this that maybe isn't drawing, but it's really hard. Everything after Season 1 is like that, but so far it feels better than the previous season, which is good, because if Season 1 was the best, 2 was kind of lowest, 3 was kind of better, maybe Season 4 is better, and so far I think it's because it feels like it's actually progressing some story and ideas, I guess. But I also, I'm not sure what to think about it beyond that. Reincarnated as the Seventh Prince, Season 2, Episode 14. I think fun. We did get to see some of the main characters' unhingedness and OP in a way that, if you've enjoyed the series up to this point, I think it's continuing to be quite fun. So, good Season 2 so far. Pantheon Stalking with Garterbelt, Season 2, Episode 2, which is back to the 2-episode format. I completely forgotten that Pantheon Stalking did this, but they were 2 half-length episodes originally, and the full-length episode stuff was for important stuff. So if the previous Episode 1 was a full-length to get you back in the series, then you had 2 little mini-episodes here. And the first one I didn't care about as much. I guess okay and amusing and fun stuff, but I think it feels a little crowded. Oh, and we did get the opening for Season 2, and of course it doesn't measure up to the first season, but the first season's opening is phenomenal. I wouldn't say the second season's is bad, but when you're going up against phenomenal, it's pretty hard to compete. First season works out because you really feel like the show is starting up and you're excited and getting energized and ready to do it, like you're revving up an engine. And even though it's only 30 seconds long, which is very short compared to most openings, it's an effective 30 seconds. This one, I don't even remember what happened as much. And part of the problem is probably the same problem with the first half episode of this episode, which is it's got a lot of stuff it's doing. It's a little busy, and so it's not as focused on, I guess, one thing. And I think it's fine that it's not trying to do the same exact thing there. Otherwise, the first half episode was like that. The second half episode was fun with the references. It's definitely one of those things where it introduces a in-episode card game, and of course the rules don't make sense, they're hard to get into, and you enjoy it for different reasons, and some of those reasons are definitely references to real life card games. And while I've never played Yu-Gi-Oh!, never watched Yu-Gi-Oh!, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I recognize that reference. And it's definitely a very crass episode, but I'm pretty sure the first season was pretty crass as well, so I guess it's returning to form. I'm trying to think if there's any episode from the first season that I would say, yes, I really enjoyed this one. But it's hard to say. I just kind of enjoyed the overall willingness to go over the top and be crazy. And I guess we're getting that so far with Season 2. So I'm going to have trouble comparing to Season 1, other than to say that my lack of memory of Season 1 suggests that Season 2 is measuring up as much as it is. Oh well, anyways, welcome to the Outcast Restaurant, Episode 3. I think it was a kind of neat story. If there's any complaint I have, it's that we're not getting a lot of the slave girl or former slave girl. She's in there doing stuff, but maybe the show's setting up everything else, because it's really about, I guess, building together a group of outcasts. And while I thought the new character they introduced in this episode was just initially an intolerable, eye-rolling piece of shit, it actually managed to have a very good story by the end of it. And so it's really hard to say what I evaluate about the show, but overall, I would say, given the 3-episode mark, it seems fine. Dawn to Dawn Season 2, Episode 15. Guess more entertaining and fun stuff continuing to happen. Doesn't feel as unhinged as some of the previous Dan to Dan stuff, but maybe that's just because there's only been 2 episodes so far. And it does feel like it's spending a lot of time on something that's like, okay, yeah, I need this to tie back to our main characters, please. Because there's been little bits of elements, but a lot of cool things happening. So, strange mix of an episode. Water Magician, Episode 3. Again, this show is being careful about not spoiling the things that can make these OP isekai stuff fun too quickly, and instead trying to make sure we have individual moments that we enjoy. And I actually really like a lot of the... I'm trying to think what to describe it, but so like our characters finally reach a town that the saved character knows, and so this is a chance for us to kind of see some integration there, our main character integration there, and so far it's off to a great start where it's just like they really, really appreciate the main character's back, because he was kind of the hero of their little town. And they did lots of just little setup things where it's just like, even though it's like, okay, yes, they're really into him, there are a lot of friendly people in there, and other people that are nodding to the main character and saying, oh, I see. Sort of like understanding that there's interesting things going on there. And so the show isn't really stuck worshipping the main character. Instead, we're seeing a world that feels like the characters, at least their interactions with each other, are pretty on there. So overall, I'd say a good 3rd episode, and I look forward to seeing more of it and kind of just seeing this world slowly expand, because the characters interacting in it feel deep but not distracting. It just sort of feels like it's a natural world that our main character is just becoming integrated with, and he's probably going to do amazing things for them. With him obviously acknowledging that the fact that they already have curry probably means that somebody else already isekai'd there and taught everybody curry. Fun stuff. Dr. Stone Science Features Season 4 Part 2 Episode 14. They introduced a new character. She seems okay. And I guess they have interesting stuff that they showed, and interesting Dr. Stone plans unfurling and changing and adjusting and rotating, and I'd say entertaining. A little... So like I've mentioned that Dr. Stone, when it's person versus let's build some science shit, the let's build some science shit is, for me, the favorite part of the show. Then while the other one can... I've got hiccups, sorry. While the other one can provide some drama that can give some meaning to some of the stuff, it doesn't change the fact that I prefer the let's do some science, bitches. And this is one where it's kind of floating in between, but I do feel like it's leaning slightly more towards that let's do some science, bitches. So it's been a very fun second half of this season. So I'm looking forward to it keeping going. So, Secrets of the Silent Witch, I don't remember talking about it last time, so I suspect I forgot to talk about Episode 2. At a minimum, if I did talk about it, I might mention it, but the show's really emphasizing what I said you could get the feel for in Episode 1, which works around the show's biggest problem, which is, okay, why is this character so much better than everybody else? Because she's fucking damn good at math. And it was really interesting because Episode 2, she started talking about the golden ratio. And it's interesting because in the first episode, she was counting sheep. This was what hunted me into, okay, the thing of her saying mathematician, probably, while it was a misdirection, is also kind of a hint as to her mindset and the way of things. And if you don't know, the Fibonacci sequence and the phi actually have a really close relationship to each other. Some of this comes from the infinite rational expansion. I forget if that's what it's explicitly called. But this idea that leads into, if you've ever heard somebody say that phi is the most irrational number, what they mean is it's the hardest to approximate with fractions. And you may say, oh, well, if you have 100 digits, you can just have the first 100 there and then divided by thing there. And it's like, yes, that's true, and you can do that for any rational number. But for a lot of them, you can usually shrink that a bit, and you can get closer to the exact value. You know, you can have an approximation that gets closer to the exact value quicker. Take, for example, the famous fraction for pi, 22 divided by 7. You know, that's actually a pretty damn good approximation for pi. Not like to a billion degrees or anything, or a billion decimals or anything like that. But given that you have a 2-digit number divided by a 1-digit number, it is super efficient. And phi highly resists that. Now, the truth of the matter is there's actually an infinite number of equally bad ones, because the way these infinite rational numbers work is while the top of every fraction has to be 1, and everything after the first, fractional divide, everything has to be positive number plus blank. It's the very first leading number can be any number, and so that means there's an infinite number. But you should recognize that any of those would be like pi plus some integer minus some integer value. So it's basically all phi's. Did I say pi? I meant phi. It's basically phi, but phi, there's a lot of phi variants that count as well. So for all intents and purposes, phi is that. And the reason those two episodes are interesting is because if you use that, you can, when you have these infinite fractional representations of a number, what you can do to get an approximation is choose some point and say, all right, no more fractions. We just now have something that comes to a finite end, and let's wrap it up until it bubbles up into one singular fraction. And phi ends up being, no matter where you choose, it's just the deeper you go, the further along you go. In the Fibonacci sequence, approximations for phi are one number in the Fibonacci sequence divided by the previous one. So 21 divided by 13 is an approximation of phi. But as we just said, it's a poor approximation, because even though there's not a lot of digits there and it's kind of getting you slightly in the ballpark, it's still surprisingly far off. It's the most resistant to having small or efficient fractional representations. But if you choose Fibonacci numbers, you do get approximations. And I don't know, maybe that's a whole math aside thing, but if you think Fibonacci and phi are closely related, there you go. And if you ever look at the formula for Fibonacci numbers, I think it involves phi, and phi is a twin sibling. I shouldn't go into that kind of detail. The point is, those are related, and man, I just got into a thing. So, the show shows our main character not only likes math, she really likes math to an almost dangerous for herself degree. It's a fun weakness, because it also, while we enjoy seeing her go into that mode, it also sets her up for, oh, okay, the story just moved forward because you accidentally did that. Oops. And again, there's all these things, like, as far as shy, hard to socialize characters go, I think she's better than Bakshi from Bakshi the Rock. Assuming I even pronounced that correctly. And I do apologize. I don't know why I don't remember if I'm pronouncing that right. And for those of you who really like that, you should know that's setting a pretty fucking damn high bar, because Bakshi was very nice. But she's... yes, 3 episodes in, and I'm definitely looking forward to more episodes from that. That is another plus from this season airing right now. For me personally, at least. Apothecary Diaries. So if I didn't talk about it last time, we had Season 2, Episode 47. Now we have Season 2, Episode 48. Ending Season 2, I believe. With certain things I expected to have happen and wondered if they weren't going to happen, and then they did happen, and I don't see how there could be a Season 3, and I kind of hope there isn't. Just because, while there are some things left unresolved, where it's just like, I don't know how to go into more detail. I also don't know if for season 3 if they would have to start making up stuff that was kind of resolved in season 2, which would be kind of bad. But overall, I really liked both seasons of it. I thought it ended with some... I guess some strong scenes is the best way I can think to put it. Togen Anki, episode 2. So that one is... Episode 2 is getting a little bit on my nerves. We'll see if I still give it episode 3 a shot. Episode 1, I think I did mention last time, but that one just sort of felt like it jumped into things a little quickly. Hard to get some of the bearing. Maybe because it was jumping on some of the shonen tropes a little quickly. And I thought it actually seems to execute them fine. If it doesn't feel like, this is just Naruto all over again or something weird like that, it feels like it's got its own thing. It feels like it's not something that's devoid of creativity. And I think it actually rates pretty well, so I think a lot of other people see it. I just don't really like the person they introduced at the beginning of episode 2, because like, he's supposedly Mr. Efficient, but apparently he's Mr. Dumb fucking piece of shit, because if he was really interested in being efficient, then he wouldn't be doing something to intentionally sabotage people's emotions in order to make it hard for them to do what he wants them to do. In other words, if somebody fucking wakes up from a coma tied to a chair with his mouth shut, then you don't say, shut up, I'm not going to explain anything to you, I'm just going to explain this once, so you better be listening. Now, the truth of the matter is there may be a huge element of that, which is deliberately trying to get on the main character's nerves in order to emotionally set him off, because I think that's part of the test he's doing, but still really frustrating. So I probably failed that test too, so if I was an Oni, then, yeah, I guess I just don't get to go to that class. Which, you know, the characters in there, it throws them at us really quick, and they do feel like a lot of the stereotypes you would see in there, but they don't feel like, let me copy and paste your homework. It does feel like somebody who had the right idea in terms of, these are kind of tropes that kind of work in here. So it feels okay, just kind of throwing the tropes out there a little quick, I guess. So there might be an execution problem going on here, and, you know, there might just be a character that's an important character that grinds my gears, that makes it hard for me to watch. Like, I already gave up on something else. So, anyways, Kaiju number 8, season 2, episode 13. I'd say a kind of weak start to the season. Kind of. I think it's still good, but it's not great like season 1, episode 1. And that one, I guess it had some actiony moments in it, but I think what made the very beginning of the season, the very beginning of the series, work is it sold us on the main character and being invested in him before it introduced any of the really weird shit. And this one, it's like some of the in-between episodes where maybe the most exciting stuff is not happening. I mean, I guess they showed stuff where they're like, oh, you thought number 2 looked like Godzilla, hold my beer. And they just introduced a kaiju that looks even more like Godzilla than anything else in the show. If somebody told me that it was introduced solely for the anime and they just didn't have any idea, so they introduced something that looked like Godzilla, I could believe them, because the fact that that kaiju looked like Godzilla was kind of unimportant. It only served to introduce us to the main character of one of the first division. And I'd say the English voice actor was actually pretty fun. He has these funny little being kicked squeal moments, and while I wasn't quite sure if I liked the kicks or not, I can remember that in season 1 there's a lot of people hitting other people on the head a whole lot. It's just something the show does. And the important thing is, you know, while they show that people hurt, it doesn't look like anybody's necessarily overly hurt by it. There's some tough guy banter sort of vibe to it, which I think makes it work. But, you know, that's a bit of a digress, because I'm talking about all this stuff and it's kind of showing how everybody's moving up, but it's not giving us anything that I would say is the core of the stuff. In fact, the description of the episode kind of gave the impression that it would start off with a boom, and it kind of didn't. But it's okay. We're going to have the next episode this coming week, I hope. Private Tutor to the Duke's Daughter, episode 4. I was kind of debating whether or not I would watch this. I've decided to push myself tonight to finish watching it, so I'm recording this pretty damn late. Hopefully I'll get everything finished and not go to bed too late or anything like that. And maybe because I pushed it off to the end, I didn't feel it.
although the episode had some good action in it, and I would say that compared to a lot of other stuff where I've complained about shows with action that are pointless, some elements of this felt like that. But I think it's more of it didn't connect with me because I guess I'm not quite sure what theming they're going for, but I do believe the stakes were real and it didn't feel completely artificial. Like maybe just a slight hint. So it's not as bad as all that other stuff I've complained about before. And it does involve, again, the growth of a character that we want to see. But I guess I just don't know what I want from this show because there's a whole lot of it that seems mostly just be one guy with two cute lolly-ish girls. I say lolly-ish because one of them does have something of a rack, I guess. So they're more like petite girls. I think petite's probably the right word because lolly isn't quite right. They are supposed to be kind of little sister-esque because the main character is, I guess, good with dealing with little sister type characters. So that's supposed to go into it, and you can tell, okay, well, anyways, I say all that stuff, and I think there's an element of it that's kind of a dedicated two-girl harem. I say that, but I get the feeling that as things continue forward, we may see one or two more characters enter that harem as the show moves forward. Which kind of gets me worried about what is the theming for this really supposed to be, and I think that's it. It sort of feels like it just is sort of continuing to move forward, which isn't completely bad, but I guess it's not engaging me as much as I would have hoped. Oh well. Shy Hero and the Assassin Princess is episode 3. I think they did a good job with this episode. So I think I mentioned that episode 2 I felt was better than episode 1. I felt this episode was better than episode 2. And some of the main things it did well. So episode 2 kind of established what it means for them to try to assassinate him, even though they kind of established in the first episode that they're kind of against each other. And obviously, because of the way they're set up, they can't work together. But they established in episode 2, okay, this is what it means going forward. And they established the main character's relationship with one of the characters in a way that's just like, okay, she's kind of got some endearing qualities that made it really fun to see her on screen. And as you can expect, you know, they have two more characters. Like, okay, the problem is they have characters that feel like it's harder and harder to go with. With Gao? I don't remember which it is. I'm bad with some of the names. With her, in this episode, they decided to go with both of them, which is good because if they took one and just stretched it, I don't think it would have quite worked as well. And by pacing themselves like this, it didn't feel too rushed, and it actually felt like it set up, okay, here's a good field view of everything and why you like all the things, and why at the end of this episode I finally like the Shy Hero a little bit more. I mentioned before that it felt like the first 2 episodes, if he was just quiet the whole time and it was just the Assassin Princesses, would have been good. Episode 3 is when I'm starting to feel like, okay, I'm starting to like that Shy Hero is here. And I don't mean here physically, I mean like that we also get insights into what he says and does. It's not proving to be a one-trick pony, it's mixing things up. And then with the 2 girl characters, it's like, okay, now we need to introduce reasons why the audience cares about these more than just shallow archetypes. You know, I don't think they're going like super deep with the archetypes. I think instead they're just going with common below surface level stuff that just works really well. And so with the First Lady, I think we got some insight into her that's just like, okay, that's a fun twist. That's neat. That's something to play with that feels like it really works here. And so that's a glad and good to go thing. And then you had Anemone, the girl I thought was actually the hardest to do this with, because, you know, there's kind of a bit of a contradiction in her character, which is to say she's a beer drinking, smoking, mercenary type girl. She would probably be more comparable to Revy from Black Lagoon than anybody else from a medieval fantasy show. But here she is. She has to pretend she's a priest. It's just like, okay, this doesn't feel like it meshes well together. So how will this work? Especially since she's much more of a born killer than the other two, or a trained killer or something like that. Like, one of them, we don't even think she's necessarily trying to kill him, but he'll be permanently taken out of the game if she succeeds. And another one, it's like, yes, she wants to kill him, but she has other things that's really her goal, and he's a means to an end, and because of that, anyways. So with Anemone, it's just like, okay, well, she's the one that feels like she would take it the most seriously and be the hardest for us to say, oh, yeah, actually, neat stuff. And I think they had little moments there that worked, and then the way her interaction with him just worked overall, I thought was just... I thought it was nice. I thought it worked. And it, again, brought out the strengths in Shy Hero quite a bit more than I would have guessed. Likewise, they don't sit back on the other characters. They had a moment between the other two characters that was just like... fucking hilarious. So overall, a really positive third episode. I like that it's gotten better now. Granted, it probably can't keep getting better. Maybe it does, but probably can't. So, but as long as it doesn't prove itself to be like a one-trick pony, and it actually continues to just do interesting things, I'd say it's a pretty positive 3 episode. A surprisingly positive 3 episodes, especially given the first episode. Next up, Scooped Up by an S-Rank Adventurer, episode 3. I guess we're starting to see stuff going on. One of the big problems I have with it is our main character started giving some quick, do this, quick, do that kind of orders. And I had mentioned that one of the things I liked about episode 2 was they established that the group was already a pretty capable S-Rank party on their own. And maybe the introduction of him would make it where they don't know that they can do certain things, but they didn't quite introduce that as a good reason for him saying, you do this, you do that. It feels instead like the show just gave it to him, and it messed up kind of everything else that happened so far, where it didn't feel like it was just giving things out. Now, it didn't completely mess up because it didn't have the first party already coming back and saying, oh no, we didn't want to get rid of you, so they haven't fired that gun early. They're definitely going to go that route. But I would say that of some of the stuff that happened, it's a little more shoulder shrugging, I guess. So, kind of episode 3 weakening a little bit. So it might be okay as it continues to go, but yeah. The Summer Hikaru Died, episode 3. What all happened in here? I don't feel like anything really scary, creepy happened in this episode. So it's really hard to measure this from a 3 episode standpoint, because I think it just established that there's a strong element that's the drama. And if there's any problem I have with that, it would be that if the drama element ends up being strong enough, it could make the horror element not as rewatchable. It's really hard to say for certain, which isn't to say that the horror element wouldn't be rewatchable, but rather, you might rewatch the show for the drama element as opposed to the horror element. I guess we'll have to see. So it's a really confusing episode 3, but, off to a good start. Ugly Mug, Epic Fighter, episode 3. Here's another one with a surprising 3rd episode. And let's see. So episode 2, I don't remember if I talked about the way it ended, and I maybe nodded about something, saying, maybe it undermines our main character a little bit. Maybe it kind of still does. It is what it is. But I think what makes episode 3 make me curious about continuing to watch this is what it's starting to reveal about the other 2 characters. And it's just like, it hasn't revealed everything, but it's introduced that they aren't shallow cardboard cutouts. I mean, the first guy in episode 2, he kind of felt like, well, that's a fun coincidence. But now we have some other stuff going on that I don't know if it's related to that or to something else. There's some good mystery going on there, and a girl who is just like, she just sort of seems there. I think as we learn more about her, she's becoming more interesting, and she's kind of important because I think our main character, as long as they don't do something stupid and make it where what he reasons is wrong, as long as they keep his reasoning of stuff good and thus his purpose motivated by that present, I think that's actually a thread that holds the rest of the season, the rest of the series together. We'll have to see. Because other than that, there's, I was going to say that, there's not a lot of townsfolk to it. Sort of like Shy Hero. But not Watercolor Magician. Anyways. Night of the Living Cat, episode 3. I guess some stuff happened. For me, the best part of the episode was actually the food they cooked. Not that I know if I would actually like it, because bonito flakes are, I think, a kind of fish, and there's seafood on there too. So yeah, seaweed, and I'm not sure if I would like that, but I did like seeing them cook that little thing. And outside of that, kind of some of the zombie apocalypse stuff is okay, but it feels like more of the same of what was in episode 1. So overall, I would say it can go on. Like, I could see how it could continue going on because there's a lot of zombie apocalypse stuff, but it just doesn't feel like it's definitely doing that zombie apocalypse-like sort of stuff as engaging as I guess I would hope. So, yeah. And I guess the ratings kind of say as much. It's certainly very watchable. It's just maybe not as mind-bogglingly spectacular as everybody expected, which is fine. Next up we have Apocalypse Bringer Minogra. Civilization of Ruin. Okay, actually there was something else called Civilization of Ruin. Apocalypse Bringer. Apocalypse Bringer. I'm having a little apocalypse there. Episode 3. I, again, really enjoy that it's doing this kind of... Like, the kind of video game it's actually suggesting that our main character did a whole lot of was more like a Civilization. Although for me it was more like Master of Orion, because I've played games like that, although not seriously. But it feels like it's a game, something along those lines, with a medieval fantasy thing that they're basing it off of, and they're building up things, and I guess it's just neat. I think the highlight continues to be seeing village building sort of stuff. It will be interesting to see what otherworldly interactions look like. Interactions with people other than the ones they've established, but at the same time, I do want to see them continue to build stuff up. And I guess when I want to see them interact with some of the other characters, I want to see them establish expectations of what we would see going forward, I guess. So I'm looking forward to that, potentially, but for the 3 episodes we got, I think it's neat. Fun in a village building, civilization, medieval fantasy style game sort of thing, I guess. I do believe episode 3 of Gachiakuta, the garbage anime, did not air this week, and I kind of knew that. I think the countdown indicated that it would be skipping a week, and I don't think I saw it on Crunchy Munchy, and so presumably I didn't do something dumb and miss episode 3. If I did, I'll catch up on it. So we'll have to catch up on it. And then last but not least, we have Sword of the Demon Hunter Season 1 Part 2 Episode 15, which finally gets back into our main character doing some stuff and entertaining enough stuff. I think this is more the beat that I want to see of Sword of the Demon Hunter. It's not addressing certain points from the end of the first season directly. I think it mentioned 1 or 2 of them, but it's overall, our main character in a certain position once again. Which is a little unfortunate because I guess there's a part of that hope that the ending of season 1 was kind of a major thing, and I guess in the grand scheme of things it wasn't that major. But overall, pretty good. Anyways, do I have anything else to really talk about? I guess I did some Archipelago with my nephew and my brothers. If you're not familiar with that, Archipelago is a multi-world thing where the idea is you have games where you can maybe hack an executable in some way to create progress. I think the originating example of this is 2 Super Nintendo games, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, aka Zelda 3, and Super Metroid. So if you ever see SMZ3, it's kind of a combination of those two games where there's this multi-world idea where You know, people played around with changing the order of things in a game, but this changes where things are between games. So you have to go between games, make progress on both games to kind of figure out how to progress forward. And Archipelago increases that to multiple players and multiple games. And, well, I think most of the people were playing Super Metroid. The sister-in-law was playing Hat in Time, and I was playing Doom, specifically Doom 1 Episode 2. And I've probably talked about this before. But it was definitely quite fun, especially early on and later on into the session. Because earlier on, it was just like, it's like, okay, well, because I can't unlock weapons, I now have to figure out, because of the difficulty I'm on, whether or not I can punch this cockademon to death. Oh, can't. Okay, well, let's try again. Oh, this time somebody else found a shotgun and sent it to me. Okay, well, now I can defeat a cockademon. And there's been a lot of ammo management and running through it. It's at the middle difficulty, just before ultra violence. And I think that's been a good balancing point, because I've been able to just keep active and just keep doing stuff until I finally reached the breathing point. But apparently I was moving faster than everybody else, so... Well, everybody else is about 44% through their games. I'm 73% through mine. And I guess I was just at a pausing point anyways, where I'm waiting for somebody else to unlock either the one level I need or the handful of key cards I need. But, you know, it stayed a very fun curve there. It does make me think that if for Doom 1 Episode 3, maybe, especially for Doom 1 Episode 4, maybe I will go with the option to have the automap automatically for all levels. So, because I don't trust myself to remember how to find everything on those terribly well. So I'll just have to figure that out. Anyways, the point is, you know, that was fun. I really like my old school style Doom. It's surprisingly engaging. And I think it's interesting because I don't think you have like environments that you're like, oh yeah, you can tell the levels apart because this one looks like a Citadel and that one looks like a Denny's or something like that. But instead there are definitely just very distinct rooms that they keep making that all connect together in ways that I don't know that they make sense. But you can just tell, okay, I need to go to that room that looked like that. So I think there's a neat distinctiveness, and just the game stays engaging with you the whole time, at least at this difficulty level. So I think that's been very good. But that said, I did already kill the Cyber Demon. You know, I had the rocket launcher by that point. I'm just like, okay, fine, I'll do this. And there's a lot of boxes of rockets there. So as long as I'm not dumb and get hit by 2 rockets, you know, I only got hit by 1 rocket. As long as I don't get hit by 2 rockets, I'll be fine. Killed him at 12% health. That's just normal Doom for you. Fun stuff. Alright, this video has gone on for a long time. I'm sure y'all are tired too. I'm not even quite sure what AI stuff I'm going to generate, but I guess I figure that out afterwards. But that's an aside. Y'all have a nice week.